Okay, we're back. Now, previously we saw how Washington's inauguration and the first 5 presidents' inaugurations were very different from Jackson's. So what changed? And this is part of the democracy part. Democracy means that people have the choice in their government, that they have a voice. Now, of course, that's what America is built on today, and that's what they intended to at the very beginning after they wrote the Constitution. But not all men were allowed to vote. Check out your notes. The population shifts west. More and more people, as transportation increased, as you know from the previous unit, more people had individuality. Jackson from there was from the West. So they identified with Jackson. As you can see on this map, you know, this was in 1790. And of course, more people square mile. Now, a lot of people consolidated themselves along the coast because, well, that was available. Those were where the major ports were. But as time went on, more people are moving westward. This is just 40 years later. And of course, with the invent of the railroad and the steamboat and canal systems, people in this area were able to get their goods to the Mississippi as well as to other ports. Property ownership and education not needed to vote. It used to be prior to that you had to have land in order to vote, meaning you had to have money. You weren't the common person. You weren't just working someone else's land. So there's a lot of common people, well, men in this case, because women couldn't vote, that didn't have the right to vote. But now the laws have changed. So as you can see here, the property qualifications mean that you had to have property in order to vote, changed in 1830, which was just prior to Andrew Jackson's presidency. So all these people in pink and in the blue areas, universal male suffrage means the right to vote, had changed from state to state. So all these people out here that really identify with Jackson being a self-made man and came from poor roots, they really, you know, wanted someone that they kind of felt like they were like. There's a great increase in the amount of voters, especially from the lower class. And of course, you should be filling in the blanks on your notes. As you can see here in 1824, before the voting laws changed, there was a very few amount of Americans that voted. And all of a sudden in 1828, which is the year that Jackson ran for president the second time, you can see that the number of voters definitely increased. So the lower class people, again, identifying with Jackson, being, hey, he's just like me. And we like this guy. And that's the way a lot of us vote today. You know, you vote for people that have similar ideas to you. So they're going to pass laws and protect what you think is right.
For the opportunity, conceive yourselves quite lucky, for 'tis not often that you see a hunter from Kentucky, oh Kentucky, the hunters of Kentucky, oh Kentucky, the hunters of Kentucky.
These were the type of people. What you just heard was a pretty popular song at the time, the Hunters of Kentucky. And these were the people that identify with Jackson. As you can see, Farmer McPoor, bro, this is how you party. Look at the size of that cheese. This is kind of a funny story because Jackson, at his inauguration, when he was elected president, said, hey, I'm going to put a big old block of cheese out, and that's going to make my people happy. And that's what he did. One of the biggest block of cheeses ever. People just came by, carved off a block of cheese, and had a bite to eat. And of course, the elitists, who were not really his favorite people, looked at them as mobs, fighting, romping. It was a people's day and the people's president, which was true. So how did he get elected? So first, we got to look at the election of 1824. Now, back in the day, Jeffersonian democracy had to do with the people should govern as little as possible. The people should be governed as little as possible. That was Thomas Jefferson's idea of what America should be. Jackson's was a little bit different. He expanded it even more. Jackson felt that the people that should be governing should be the common person, not the rich, not this elite group. Should be people a lot like us, a little like you and me. Government by the majority of people instead of government by the upper class. And a lot of people are looking at that way today if you follow politics. Check out McPoor and Ferryweather's comments. So, let's get to the story, the election of 1824. Now, James Monroe was the last president, Monroe Doctrine, we've learned about prior in the early years of the Republic. Now we're looking for a new president. Jackson runs. John Quincy Adams, the son of John Adams, second president, runs. Henry Clay from the West, and William Crawford. Now, here's how the voting went down. Popular vote refers to the individual votes that each person gets. Like you and me, we go to vote and they count the votes. And as you can see, Jackson is a clear winner. But, as you can see here in the comment, the president isn't elected by popular vote. Back then, or today, you don't usually have this many candidates. And in order to win president, you have to have a majority of the vote. Clearly, as you can see, 41% is not more than half or a majority. So, according to the Constitution, it goes to the House of Representatives, and they vote on who should become president. Now, electoral vote is how much each state gets. So, a state votes on a person. Now, the majority of a certain state, doesn't matter how much a popular vote gets, you get all the votes from that state. It's a little complicated, but just bear with me. As you can see, again, Jackson gets the electoral vote, but he has to get more than half. And again, it goes to the House of Representatives. You need a majority of the vote. And that's what happens. Whoop, let's go back one. But, let's go back a minute. Henry Clay, of course, is out. Crawford is out. So the House of Representatives has to decide between Jackson and Adams. Henry Clay says, hey, Adams, I'm going to go to the House of Representatives and I'm going to be your boy and I'm going to convince all those guys to vote for you. Well, that's exactly what he did. He lost, Jackson did, even though he had more votes. He called this a corrupt bargain. He couldn't believe that he lost. He believed the government was corrupt, that all the rich elite were manipulating the government, and they stole the presidency from him. Corrupt bargain is a vocabulary word you're going to have to know. Now, Jackson reacts, man. He is livid. He is so mad. He reacts. He's going to start his own political party, and he calls it the Democratic Party, which is now the same Democratic Party we have today. So that's where this starts. He's going to create a political party for the common man. Make sure you get all this in your notes. Pause the video if you need to.
The zombies are coming.
All right, it's time for a brain snack. Let's get a little break. Now, if you're not familiar with a brain snack, we're going to take a minute and reflect on what we've learned. I want you to go to the left-hand page in your spiral. That means the one right beside where you put Jacksonian Democracy Unit page. And I want you to title it Brain Snack. Pause the video if necessary. Now on the left-hand side of your paper, I want you to draw a quick stick figure face, just the face, of Andrew Jackson's expression that you think he made when he found out that he lost the election of 1824 to John Quincy Adams. I want you to share it with the person next to you. Quick sketch, go. Pause the video. All right, I bet you have some great faces out there, and of course they're pretty angry. And Andrew Jackson, he was not going to be disrespected like this. As you know before, it was about the duels, but he's a politician now, so he's going to do it a different way, but he's still going to get back to those people. Now, in the next 4 years, Andrew Jackson builds up his Democratic Party with all his supporters. And poor John Quincy Adams, man, he made his presidency miserable. All those people in Congress made John Quincy Adams pretty much a dull, he couldn't hardly do anything because of his influence. So 4 years later, the election of 1828 comes around. And there is a ton of mudslinging. Mudslinging is a term still used by a lot of our politicians today. If you've watched any of the debates about insulting and throwing insults at the other candidate, and he did this and he did that. Well, this was a pretty ugly campaign. First, Jackson called him a corrupt, money-loving dirtbag. And then he came back and insulted his wife, Rachel. Your wife is a two-timer. It got pretty nasty. And of course, Andrew Jackson's wife took it very difficult because of all the insults that were thrown at her. Now, Jackson ends up winning by a lot. So let's look at the map. Now, the election of 1828, as you can see, there was no need to know who won the majority. Jackson's the Democrat, yellow. And as you can see, look where all the John Quincy Adams votes took place. In the North, Jackson has the South, slave owner, and of course the West. Jackson wins easily. Very popular with the common man. These are these guys out here that say, you know what, that he's kind of like me. And he vowed that when he was president, he was going to give more political power to the common man. At this time, please pause the video and go to part 3. Make sure you got all the blanks filled in.